there's a lot of advantages for this plan for us.
Okay. Sounds like two in favor of the story. Moving ahead on it?
Yep.
All right, Scott.
And I'll make sure Mr. Brenneman's proceeding with the plans, and we'll give council and the public an update when we have it.
Great job. Okay. We will move to the part of the workshop known as resident requests and presentation. If you are a resident and you have a request or a presentation, please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
White 104 Frostburg Drive. There are 4 concrete medallions on the new building, 2 of which carry an insult to Ward 17 and was paying for the building. The other 2 carry the basic Latin word for friends misspelled. On a building of this nature, I think that's a disgrace. I have 2 questions. Who is responsible at the township level for approving what was put on those medallions? And what are we doing it correctly?
Well, first, I disagree with the, you may find it insulting, I don't. I find that the statement says, we confirm everything twice. It's a saying that's as old as the scriptures, and I'm not offended by it. I don't agree with the Google or the internet interpretation of it, saying we second guess ourselves. So, on that premise, I disagree with you, but to answer your baseline questions.
Yeah, Mr. Reagan, as the architect, is both the one responsible for the picking the phrase, and he's also the one that will be putting the bill for having some changes made to the medallions.
Will there be changes to both sets of medallions or just one of the misspellings?
I will double check that. After you and I the first couple of weeks ago, I did talk to him about it. I think we just talked about the one, and I will ask him about the second one. If you could follow with an email, just so I'm clear on what the issue with the second one is, that would be helpful.
Right, I noted at the last meeting, which I watched on tape, that Mr. Reagan was closing out all the change orders. I didn't see this come up at that meeting. And I think if somebody at the township must have approved the wording on these, I think it was very poor judgment at the very least. I put it through 3 translation engines. Everyone came up with the exact same sentence. We second guess everything.
That's rude.
Well, we didn't second guess enough. I mean, didn't have a uniform building code for stairs. So.
I disagree with you. I'm sorry. You entitled to your opinion, Mrs. White. I
Okay.
disagree with you. Thank you.
Daniel Weston, 66 East Main Street. What's your interpretation of the medallion?
We confirm everything twice.
What's your interpretation?
That's my interpretation.
And repeat that again for me?
You heard me.
No, the speakers.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said it means we confirm, always confirm twice.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marlene Hall. My address is 317 Farmdale Road. I am the elected president of the Farmdale Civic Association. My mother is Doris Emerson, and she lives at 309 West Walnut Avenue. My mother's immediate backyard is the abandoned property of 720 North Church Street. And I'd like to have a better understanding of what the township plans to do. I've met with Mr. Newcomer. I'm now being forced to take care of my mother's home, to cut down trees, shrubs, all the overgrowth. So when I heard everyone talking about the parking lot across the street, there were some great terms utilized. Safety, appealing, and these are not some of the things that are currently happening, and they're causing a hardship in my finances to be able to take care of what should be taken care of at 720 North Church Street.
Ma'am, if I could respond, please.
Sure.
Ma'am, I actually wrote a memo to the township officials in, I believe it was March. I met with several people on site. Last meeting we discussed this and 3 other properties, and this is a concern, vacant lots. I believe at that time Mr. Michelle said he would be looking into it. Mr. Michelle was the acting staff manager in charge. Mr. Drew is on vacation. I do know it is a concern. I certainly have a concern for it, as we all do for vacant housing. That much I can tell you at this point. Maybe we can get some
this is why I brought it up. It's a top concern. Regrettably, our hands are tied. That property is owned by somebody. They're a private property owner, and we are not allowed to take their property without what's called just compensation. So what I get a lot of, and this is one of the top reasons I chose to bring it up at the last meeting, I get people asking about it. I, in fact, have 2 vacant houses in my neighborhood. One of them is a complete eyesore, every bit as bad as the one on Church Street, right by you. The people next door are trying to sell their house. Their sales are impacted by this. We are, in fact, organizing our street to go and clear the leaves from the fall just to try to make the house look a little more presentable. But I think it poses a great risk. But as I said, our hands are tied. We can't just, what I hear a lot from people is, why don't you just bulldoze it? We would love to, but we can't. That's property owned by somebody, and we can't, just like we can't bulldoze your property or anyone else's property, we can't bulldoze their property. What we're looking into possibly is something that was discussed in the last part of the last workshop, is a system where, right now if you don't pay your taxes, the tax collector can, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, can sell that tax lien to a third party. And that third party can now buy that tax lien. Now there are redemption rights that you have, but at the end of the day, after waiting 2 years, that person can foreclose on that tax lien, and now that third party now owns that tax lien. They can buy that property, rehab it, renovate it, and sell it. So we're looking into a mechanism where possibly, we can cite these properties for not being properly kept up, and then convert those unpaid citations to liens, and then sell those liens, and hopefully a third party will buy them, and then take care of the house. It's a very cumbersome, slow process, ma'am. I tell you that. I know.
About 20 years.
Well, I agree with you, and it's shameful that somebody would let their house get like that, and they would disrespect their neighbors like that. I don't understand it. What I don't understand is the houses that are, and there's lots of them, not just in our. This is an epidemic in our state because of the economy. There are houses that are owned by people. The taxes are paid, but they're not doing anything with them, and they're not even taking care of them. And I agree, it's egregious. And if there was a way I could wave my hand and solve the problem, I would do it in a second.
So at what point does the township have any responsibility when it's a safety risk? And I'm not so much just speaking about the house. I'm talking about the tree that's half fallen down, the tree that's over the fence that's leaning on the fence. I'm talking about the rodents that are coming from there because they live there, the feral cats that are there. So it's not just so much the structure, it's all the things because of that root cause of the structure.
Right.
And the township has no responsibility to ensure the safety for all.
We can, I don't interrupt you, I'm sorry. We can cite the homeowner. It's like a ticket, getting a ticket from a police officer.
Sure.
And and if that person shows up in court, they're given a certain amount of time to fix the problem, or they get a fine. If they don't show for court, a warrant's issued for their arrest, just like a speeding ticket. But lots of times these are out-of-state property owners, and the warrant. No one's going to chase down a warrant and arrest somebody in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia because he's not mowing his lawn in Morristown. It's just a sad fact. So we have to. This is something that's on our radar screen, and we're going to address it, and we're going to address it aggressively. Because, like I said, it's not just a problem in our town. It's a problem that I hear across the board. It's a problem I consistently hear from residents. I have the same problem. Right now, the way the current laws are written, there are deficiencies, and we have to fix it.
Ma'am, I've spoken with 4 property owners in regards to the same subject, and directly in regards to 720 Church Road. I spoke to Mr. Clifford, who has taken some of the actions that the mayor has described and has been able to not solve this problem in that manner. And Mr. Clifford says he's going to redouble his efforts and try to move this forward. I've only known about this problem, as I said, since March, but I'm going to be on it.
Ms. Wells, have you talked to anyone in our community development department?
I have not.
That would be a good place to start, and I can let them know tomorrow to look out for you to reach out to them. Under our community development, we have construction, zoning, and planning. Mr. Newcomer just mentioned Pete Clifford, who is the zoning official. There are certain things that he has authority over. It's for a property maintenance issue, it's slightly limited, but in our construction office, Mr. Holmes, who's the construction official, may have, and I stress may, have some authority over any type of structural issue that may be causing a safety hazard. And I'll give you an example. Actually, use using a situation we had a few weeks ago where there was an abandoned home, and Mr. Clifford and Mr. Holmes went to look at it, and the only thing that they found that they were attacked on was that the fence, it had a pool and the fence was down. That is a requirement that they could move on. And so it was unfortunately bank-owned. I think the bank is down in Texas. But in those situations where there is an actionable item and we cannot get either the homeowner or the bank to take action on it, at that point, we can take action and then place a lien on the house. So we can actually fix the problem. But as the mayor said, it's a long, arduous process that has multiple steps, legal steps that we're required to take. But I would reach out to Tom Ford, who's the Director of Community Development, tomorrow, explain the situation to him, and he should be able to point in the right direction with his staff.
In addition, the last time we discussed this at our last meeting, we talked about different codes that would be a possibility, and I believe there's some investigation going on in that. BOCA codes are codes that cover how you construct a building, and there's an existing building code for some towns which they can pass, which would involve keeping up your property as well. And I know Palmyra has that existing building code. I think there's some investigation into that as well. I know we did discuss it at our last meeting.
So as a resident, how do we get an update on this? Personally, how do I get an update? Because it affects my financial well-being as well as the safety for my mother
Mr.
directly.
Brew, actually.
You could always contact my office. If you do begin a dialogue with any of the employees of community development, they will certainly follow up with you. Because another direction this could potentially take, if there's issues with exit roads, the Burlington County Health Department would have authority over on certain health issues. Mr. Clifford would coordinate that for the township to get them involved. And once the ball starts rolling on something like that, usually whoever the complainant is, the staff is always trying to keep them up to date with what's going on. Because sometimes we can do stuff, and sometimes, unfortunately, the news is that our hands are tied, at least for the time being. But they'll let you know one way or the other.
Another opportunity might be to see if men would be interested in the house, because they have taken over some houses, and it's been a good program for the town to have men. That's another. Right.
And the state, I believe at the state level, a bill was just passed by the Assembly, which I think will fine, I think it's mostly banks, severe penalty a day, I think it's $2,500 a day for not tending to properties. So that shows you that it's something that it's a concern across the board, but you have to hit the people in the wallet. And we don't have the money to set aside to buy these properties outright. They may not be for sale, and these houses go back in sometimes generations. Sometimes the founders don't even know they own them. Someone's paying the taxes on them, but we have to. I believe the fine and the lien and the and selling the lien is probably one of the better ways to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments.
The residents. Okay, so now we'll close that portion. Are we able to move in? Okay. We're going to move into our regular part of the meeting. We're going to start it off with a moment of silence, followed by a flag salute. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Discussions and reports from members of council, starting with Victoria.
Well, over the weekend, on Saturday, I had the pleasure of attending the rec soccer kickoff. It's been an event I've been going to the last few years. I was trying to get a couple smoothly. There's more kids who are signing up for the program. And so I just really want to commend our staff for putting together such a great and very well organized event. Also to the Sean Fishel Connect organization, who donated all of the team t-shirts this year as donations that they acquired last year. And other than that, the only other report I have is that the Open Space Committee will be having a meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. in the library.
Thank you, Victoria. Greg?
Well, I just wanted to report a couple of things. Our appearance committee, which works on various things to keep, for instance, a tree village look up our Main Street, will be meeting on September 17th. Sustainable Morristown will meet here on the 25th, and Sustainable Morristown is actually working very hard on re-getting or getting again the bronze award that they got last year, and maybe more. They may even reach out to some of you to get some information for that. And as well, the Recreation Committee will be meeting tomorrow night in the Recreation Building, which is really full of activity. Actually, we're going to talk about some of that activity, I believe, tonight.
Okay. I have an update from Deputy Mayor Jordan. So on behalf of Deputy Mayor Jordan, she wanted to let everyone know two things in regards to the Tree Planting and Preservation Committee. We received a grant and are going to have 10 trees planted on the corner of Bridgeboro and Westfield Road. And the committee is looking for volunteers to help on September 19th to start planting. You can contact Karen Daly at my office if anybody's interested in helping out. Also, and this is pretty big news, Morristown has been picked to host statewide Arbor Day celebration next year on April 24th. We'll be receiving a number of trees and having a statewide ceremony at Wesley Bishop Park.
Nice. That's great.
Mr. Mayor, I actually have one more thing.
You'd like to report? Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to actually acknowledge the fact that the Philadelphia Inquirer printed an article yesterday which was entitled "Drawing a Crowd with Civility." And as we are a council that's taken a civility pledge, I thought this was interesting because it's basically one of the things in the article said was people think it is inevitable that people with different viewpoints are as divided as they are, but it is not inevitable. Very interesting article in the Philadelphia Inquirer regarding the value of civility in government.
Is that your paper, or did you take it off the neighbor's driveway? Okay, I have nothing to report. Moving to upcoming meetings. Our upcoming meetings are going to be here at Municipal Complex, 111 West 2nd Street, September 22nd, 2014, 7 p.m. workshop, 7:30 p.m. official action. Then October 6th, 2014, 7 p.m. is the workshop, 7:30 p.m. is the official action. Agenda updates. We originally thought the energy auditor would be here today, but they could not make it, which is a shame because they're going to give us a check. Which probably explains why they're not here. At this time, we'll ask for a motion to amend or adopt the consent agenda.
I would ask one thing, Mr. Mayor. If we could also put on the agenda for the next meeting or the following meeting, the Joint Insurance Fund report that I did last year, an executive summary for the council. If we could get that in the next following meeting, we have some of the items to discuss that we evaluate.
Okay, we'll discuss that with Scott and see if it's about, but absolutely correct.
Thank you.
While we're adding for future meetings, so while we're adding for future meetings,
Okay.
at the next meeting, I'd really like to get an update on our plans for the Half Marine Jetdown Park.
I can arrange probably both of those. I can tell you, Victoria, that Scott Taylor did review. Someone reached out to us about a used rent. He's looking more into it because apparently it's an indoor system. So he has concerns with how well it would hold up in outdoor conditions. But certainly by next meeting, we should be able to provide a full report on where we're going.
That's great. Okay, so picking up with the consent agenda. I'm going to ask for a motion to amend and adopt the consent agenda to pull resolution 180-2014 to be heard separately.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstention, nays, none. Okay, moving to presentations and proclamations. I have several proclamations I'm going to be giving out. And I'm not sure how to do this since I don't know who's here and who's not here. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna read the proclamations out, and if you are here representing any of the entities receiving a proclamation, please stand up and we will, I'll come down and hand you your proclamation. Actually, I'll probably take the microphone and read. These proclamations are to recognize individuals who generously gave to benefit any and every child who want to participate in the Morristown Parks and Recreation programs this summer, who may not have been able to otherwise afford it. These programs, by the way, were a great success this past summer. We start off with the Home Depot on Lawnside. Is there anybody here from Lawn? Okay, wearing the Home Depot shirt if you. Home Depot gave time, materials, and staff to come in and guide students through the Picket Fence Project. That's nice. This was a summer parks project that will be featured in common areas of the township. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Live Civilly provided on average 30 summer campers with healthy and nutritious lunches every day for a total of 610 lunches. That's incredible. Anybody here from Live Civilly? Is that you guys? Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry. Sheriff, don't fight, okay, as I say to my kids. Thank you very much. The Friends Enrichment Program covered the registration fee of $125 for 13 campers. That's Mrs. Begg. God bless you, Mrs. Begg. Another resounding success. Thank you so much. And that is yours? Don't share that with Mr. Begg. Okay, that's yours. Okay?
Not everything is his.
Now we're talking, Mrs. Begg. I knew you were conservative. More Kids covered the registration fee of $125 for 30 campers, which is extraordinary. Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. The Morristown Ministerium, a group of 8 churches, provide healthy snacks daily for the after-school children's programs. They are comprised of the First Baptist Church, the First Baptist Church, the Second Baptist Church, St. Matthew's Lutheran Church, Trinity Episcopal Church.
I'll just take them all.
You'll take them all, okay. Make sure I don't beat them in. There you go. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't think my cheat sheet. I left off a Trinity Episcopal Church, the First United Methodist Church, First Presbyterian Church, Our Lady of Good Counsel, and the Morristown Friends Meeting. And
Yes, yeah, they're all the same thing.
excellent. Thank you. That's awesome.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Great job. Thank you. And the Morristown Jewish Association also provided healthy snacks daily for the after-school children's program. That's you again?
Yeah, I thought I was
Are
going
you
to be
sure?
part of the business.
That's so for our proclamations, are you?
No, but I'll make sure this gets where it's supposed to.
Make sure this is where it's supposed to go. We're going to follow up on that. Okay. The Morristown Education Association donated $3,000 to the Special Needs Summer Program. Do you have anybody from Morristown? We'll make sure they get that. And then finally, the Perfect Game. Juniors Stephen Kapastas and Kevin Eckenrode, in conjunction with the Morristown Parks and Rec Department, repurpose jelly-used sports equipment and allow families who may not be able to afford new equipment swap and use the repurposed equipment. So, and they're not going to be here, so we'll get them there. So you're not going to come up and get taken out too hard.
No, but I'll be happy to live with that one.
Seriously, do we want?
Yeah, I will. I know Kevin.
Oh my gosh, you're the best. the auditor will not be here today, so we will move to Chairman Gallo of EDAC and his presentation. There it is.
So I don't have my back to the audience. Let's see how this works, folks.
You have it.
Yep. All right. So bear with me. So council, thanks for inviting me on behalf of the EDAC Committee, Economic Development Advisory Committee. We've been working through the first half of the year on two issues that were at the request of council. So tonight's update is both on parking, which is good timing given the workshop subject, as well as some things around improving processes with the zoning and planning board. So there's two things we're going to address. Since you brought up the engineering for the parking study, we do have two former members of the prior EDAC regime in the audience tonight, so perhaps during public session, they can speak to it as well. But certainly, having served on council during the period of time that that parking study was done, and certainly as a liaison to EDAC during that time, I certainly want to give my endorsement to proceed. Obviously, everything comes down to budget, so at the end of the day, is it the right spend to make? However, Taylor's design was smart at the time. I think it still is a smart thing to do. I think it represents progress to continue to upgrade our infrastructure and maintain it. It's sorely in need of work. And I think you'll see a good segue to the first of our two topics tonight. So I'll send this email, I guess, to you, Scott. You can distribute to the staff as well as to council. I will say that Deputy Mayor Jordan is the liaison to EDAC, so she's participated in the meetings regarding these two topics throughout the beginning of the year. And fortunately, Councilman Newcomer was able to attend one of our working sessions as well. So some of the team has started to see it, and I don't think there'll be too many surprises. But the goal tonight really is to push some things to an action, a decision point, and to sort of take the advisory role now and hand it off to you guys for the work and analysis. So the first is regarding parking meters, not to be confused with parking lots. And I'll even put this picture out to the audience because I think we all live and experience this if we're in town at any point during the day or night, and pretty much any meter. It's whether or not you can actually see the meter for what's inside and guess whether or not it's actually working. So we play this game often a lot here in town. You know, you push the button, you hope you get 12 minutes. Sometimes you put a coin in, sometimes it doesn't take the coin. But I think we know that the reality is that the current conditions are just really not conducive to a number of objectives. The main commercial district of Chester and Main Street is metered, and it should be. Repeated conversations with the NBA, the Morristown Business Association, merchants on the street, citizens, and certainly EDAC has reinforced the consensus that there's a benefit, particularly in a small old town like this, to have meters which encourages turnover. So you don't have people parking there for 8, 10 hours a day or 24 hours a day, which then makes it difficult for people, whether they're professional or retail, to come and do business in town. So there's a consensus around the benefit of having parking meters and generating that. Certainly revenue, comes from that activity as well. Problem is we have multiple meters consistently out of service, right? It makes it very difficult for people to comply, and I'm guilty of it. You go and you know that these things half the time don't work, so you're really paying attention to put a quarter in the meter when you're running in and out of stores. It certainly makes it difficult for enforcement. That even though we have previously assigned Class 2 officers to patrol Main Street, and parking was one of the objectives of having those Class 2 there. It's not the only objective they have, but it's certainly one. But there's not a lot to do, and there's frustration, I know, with some citizens around getting tickets or not getting tickets because the meters are broken and nobody knows what to do with them. It also reduces that objective of turnover, of moving cars through and making sure that we don't have long-term parking in our main commercial district. And last and certainly not least is it reduces the revenue that we should be generating. So the meters aren't working, money's not coming in. Even in the meters that do work, our fees are generally, in some cases, as much as 50% less than similar towns of our size in South Jersey and also across the river in Pennsylvania. So we'll talk about the municipal lot as well as we consider meters. They're not currently metered, but they were developed to have a tiered duration. The closer you are to the stores, the less time you should be allowed there. The further, or the closer you get to Second Street, the longer time you should have. But again, this is not enforced. I don't think most people even know that that system exists. So we've got sort of a poorly run, probably well conceived at one point, parking strategy, but it's not really working. And as you guys are already working on implementing lot rehab, the advantages of that certainly are increasing capacity, improving traffic flow, and certainly improving safety. So these are starting to kind of come together, and we want to share a couple things that EDAC worked on as it relates to consensus, is that the study itself that you referenced earlier in the meeting certainly supports meters, rates, and improvements overall. Current meters are about poor compliance and low revenue, and they're just ugly and embarrassing, frankly, for our town. It's just another piece of infrastructure that just looks sloppy to me, and it's embarrassing when you come to town, or you know, the picture that I took, I didn't get the one that I wanted. It was people from out of town that had come in for dinner, and they were literally standing there laughing. You know, they had their BYO bottles, they were going to Thomas's or Healthy Garden, I forget which, on a Saturday night, and they're there like playing with the meters and then laughing at it, right? It didn't ruin their night, I'm sure, because there was at least 4 bottles of wine between the two couples. But the point is that it doesn't make sense for us. So we're gearing towards a recommendation to you that we actually move on a meter strategy. The good news is it's self-funding, right? We're already not collecting as much revenue as we should, even if we had all the current meters working. If we get all of them working, consider some other alternatives, the increase in revenue could actually become, I'm not saying it will be, that's up to our CFO and council to decide on, but there's actually a lot of self-funding that could occur for the investment, perhaps also help out on some other things as it relates to our Main Street district, decorations, improvements, etc. So just some food for thought. We've been very fortunate on EDAC that the team's worked hard. We've gotten good input from council. We've also been able to get input from a company called Parkion. If none of you are familiar with them, and I'm not putting a plug that we do business with them or not, however, we're benefited that Parkion is one of, if not the global leaders in parking meters, and they have their America's headquarters right here in Morristown. And actually in the audience tonight are 2 of their principals, Chris Opton, who's the president, and Ed Kincaid, who's one of the directors. They've been very useful, not only in sharing their information and knowledge, but also putting us in touch with other resources as it relates to evaluating this. And with that, our goal is to share with you some concepts, not necessarily give you a pitch for what you should buy or what you should invest in, but I do want to give you some very specific things to think about. First of all, there are multiple options available. If you go into other towns these days, you start to see traditional meters as well as new meters. All of them present a significant upgrade, not just because they work compared to what we have now, but they create functionality and options that we don't currently have that we should consider. Certainly speed, ease of use, maintenance, easier monitoring, certainly increased revenue. There's actually, if you want to kind of push the envelope, opportunities for business development, advertisement, couponing for local businesses. There's announcements of community activities. So there's a lot of cool things going on. The majority of them now are solar powered, so it's an easy energy source. They're wireless, so they're constantly transmitting and uploading data for compliance, for management, etc. So there's some advantages to them. And again, at least one of the likely people that we could work with is actually housed here in town. So there's a benefit that could be derived. And again, my goal is not to be the salesperson tonight, but I do want to note that I think that's significant. And they've been great partners to EDAC in terms of just doing the work. For those of you that are on smartphones, you can actually go so far as to start to have a smartphone application to add time, to pay. And again, the idea is convenience. Any change is uncomfortable. Certainly we recognize it, but technology today being what it is, there's a lot of things that we can use to actually improve compliance and certainly make the process work better. And there are meters that maybe many of you have seen that look like a traditional meter, but are also wireless, can accommodate debit cards and credit cards as well as coins. So this isn't all about one specific option or another. It's about that there's tools and technology available that support the need for an upgrade. So what are EDAC's recommendations? Make the change. It's time. We went through a conversation a number of years ago when I was on council about whether or not we should have the meters or not. With the input of EDAC as well as the NBA, it was clear that they should be there. Well, they have to work in order for us to get the benefits of them. So we've got to make a decision on it. There are single space and multi-space options available. So as you think about Main Street and maybe making it easier versus what could potentially happen in the municipal lot where a kiosk or a multi-spot, multi-space meter could actually take up a little bit of space but make it easy for people to use, we can have a mixed solution, which I think makes a lot of sense. We also think it's time to consider changing the rate of parking and again, this is up to you, but a simple example would be from 25 cents to 50 cents while keeping the first 15 minutes free. That's a convenience that I think everyone enjoys in town and should maintain. We have looked at options that were submitted to Tom Ford from Community Development, who is our liaison to Township, on pricing of both rental, leasing, and owning. And I think you'd hear from everyone on EDAC that we were quite surprised that if you look at the increase in compliance, with or without a rate change, these things become self-funding, that the payoff, the ROI, just even on the initial investment, could be as early as 1 year, but it's certainly within the first couple of years of an investment. Depending on how many of these things or how they're staged, obviously that could be accelerated or lengthened, but there's a benefit to it, and then it can also start to create positive cash flow for the township for those other improvements or ongoing maintenance that perhaps the parking lots and Main Street always struggles for. The analysis is good. Obviously, the ball moves to you guys. So I'm going to pause because we're going to go to the next subject, but I wanted to try to give you the headlines and the call to action. There's plenty of detail that's available. And again, we're trying to be respectful as an advisory committee, not to go too far on it. But I do think it's time for an action as opposed to continuing to sort of talk about this.
Greg, in the meeting that I went to, you also said even the maintenance of the parking meters could be rolled into the value of using them. And I think it's a great idea to dovetail this with whatever we do with the parking, redoing the parking lot. The existing meters must be just the same as the lighting on that parking lot, which at one point last year was 40% out because it had all of the features that are wearing out. We need to do something.
Yeah, this is something I've said, we've talked about since we were on council from day one. I always thought if you could find a working meter, we'll give you parking for free for a year. We should have a contest. So I definitely, this is something I think is very timely, and I agree that it's the right time to bring it up now that we're going to be considering renovating the municipal lot. I believe of all the issues, it's just an embarrassment when someone comes from out of town and the meters look the way they do. I just think it doesn't reflect well on a town like Morristown. What would be the next step? I'll put this to Scott. Obviously, we don't know what type of meter or to go with a blend of the meters and the kiosk. What would be the next step to determine what's functional and what's best for what suits our needs?
Well, I'll take the information that EDAC's providing and Greg's providing. Harry Johnson obviously is a director that has to be involved because the police department would be the one responsible for the enforcement. But certainly Tom and I will look into it too. And as Greg pointed out, they've done a ton of research already. We need now to carry the ball over the goal line. Just a quick question for clarification, Greg. I think I heard, and if I didn't, please correct me, that the recommendation is individual meters on Main Street and potentially a kiosk where there's more in the park.
Yeah, so generally speaking, there are multi-space kiosks where meters could work on Main Street. This is where a little more thought has to go into, what's the adoption rate? There are towns that have already done that where for every 2 to 6 to 8 spaces, you've got to walk up and key it in and walk back to your car or enter a space number. That's certainly an option, and it's like anything, you get used to it. The other is that if we're worried about compliance or people being a little too resistant to change, you could have more of that traditional meter that I'm showing here. So I would say that we should probably look at that and look at options for what's going to create the maximum compliance and the fastest uptake. And as you start to look at these kiosks, I think that's the other thing too, is that, you know, again, some people may have an allergic reaction to them. It's like anything, you get used to them. They're actually very easy to use. They certainly lend themselves to the municipal lot where you've got lots of condensed, because you don't need as many of them for clusters of spaces. But they also could work on Main Street or Chester. It's just, I think you have to look at what the dollars and cents are. How many, you could actually have fewer meters so that you kind of clean up the streetscape a little bit. Both the kiosks have different color options. They can look a little more traditional and kind of fade into the background, if you will, as well as the more traditional meter. They also have different color or hardware features that can make it appealing while also improving compliance. So we've got a number of different analysis. Scott, I'm sure it's not enough yet. You know, I would tend to think you guys are going to have to lean into it. We're happy to help at your request, but I think you'll look at it, and I think the timing is right with the engineering for the municipal lot. It would be a no-brainer. The other thing that we talked about on EDAC, and I want to be mindful of your time, is that as this facility is done, as parking sort of changes based on the nature of volume that's coming back into the center of town, it's important to get a contiguous parking strategy as well as look for, not just because it's a revenue piece, but so that we're making sure that we're turning over vehicles even in that lot too. Because you can end up with a lot of cars parked for a long period of time, and that will create another choke point at Church Street and 2nd Street if we don't keep the cars in.
Another quick question, and if Greg, you can't answer, perhaps one of the gentlemen from parking on can. Because I've seen all the new meters, you know, all around, both the kiosks and the individual meters, where you can use a card. And did you come across any statistical analysis that shows where you can use a card, that's what people are using? Because obviously it makes it easier for collection purposes on our point, our side, if we don't have to use a class 2 to go out and, you know, empty coins out of the meters every couple of hours.
Yeah, actually, I'll defer to you guys if you have a thought on that.
Okay, can I just speak, or do you want me on the mic?
You need to go to the microphone first.
Say your name.
And again, yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good evening, Chris Upton. I live on Main Street, Morristown, 316 West. Typically, if credit card options are available, you will get an uptick of about 70%. You could get an increase in revenue based on the fact that it's easier to do a maximum time or an increased time with credit card use as well. I would echo a number of thoughts was to have a microphone. It's important to have a comprehensive parking strategy and not address little bits one at a time. You need a man or lady with a plan. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So what I'll make sure, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
You mentioned there was own options and lease options. It's kind of at first blush. What was the kind of opinion of the committee, or was there an opinion of what might be the better way to go?
There was a slight lean on own, just because the economics, at least in the models that we ran preliminarily, almost pointed to, I mean, they come with service contracts, so it's not like suddenly we have to become techies on this. You get a service component even when you own these. Again, we were trying to sort of walk that line of not overstepping an advisory committee's role. So I don't know that we had a clean consensus, but there was a lean, just simply because when we started to calculate increased compliance, even without increased spaces, so even without the municipal lot add-in, the revenue started to add up versus what the cost opportunities were. You don't necessarily have to do that. There was also lease to own. There was like a few different tiers, Victoria, so we just didn't go deep enough. And that, you know, we would certainly want Mr. Ford has the details. We want Mr. Rochelle to help us really.
So it depends on some of the variables, how many spaces we're talking about,
Right.
what pricing.
Yeah, and again, what would be an easy exercise probably for Tom to do is if we just looked at what the average out of service is and just calculated the average revenue from an in-service, multiplied it times the ones that were missing. If we did nothing else, that would give you a pretty good revenue expectation at a baseline. Before you talked about a change in fee, before you talked about actually the credit card, which drives revenue up to longer tenure, and before you talk about the municipal lot. So that's why we're kind of like, wow, this really has a very quick turnaround in terms of payoff. regardless of any of the purchase or lease options.
I like the idea of moving ahead on this. Victoria, what do you think?
Yeah, I have to say, I wasn't sure about it, it kind of seemed like we were getting along kind of okay without so much revenue. I think we made a very persuasive presentation here, especially for the turnover aspect. I think that is very important, especially considering how many residences there are along Main Street.
Right.
In fact, we have a resident from Main Street right here. It would be very easy for them to just park their secondary vehicle on Main Street and never leave that spot if there was no impetus for them to move. So I think that's important to keep the turnover for our businesses.
Yeah, Victoria, if I could add that, my office is on Main Street, and I see that all the time. And that's it's a mixed blessing, right? We've got professional or retail on the first floor, you've got apartments and houses on upstairs, and then across the street, you have single-family houses. So, but, that becomes a hindrance when you see people who live there, and their cars parked all day in a prime spot. It becomes difficult, particularly when some of those actually have off-street parking access.
Yeah, I can say I've spoken to at least half a dozen Morristown business owners, from Ralph's to Workman's, and they all want the meters there.
Yeah.
So, Greg, what do you think?
Well, I really like the idea, particularly the kiosks, because just as this screen is giving us information, perhaps even could give us information of the many functions in town that we have, even through the screen, and maybe even theatrical performances for certain groups.
I thought you were going to say you liked the solar panels the best.
Well, I was going there. But, and the idea that it would be an alternative use in solar, that's wonderful as well. I think it's a great deal. I also like the blue color of that kiosk. A very nice nocturne blue.
We can color code these things to the Morristown black and gold if you like, change with the seasons, Greg.
But can they have inscribed a little nipper on them?
Probably, as long as we have the copyright for it. I want to bring up a point that Mr. Rochelle brought up. I think it's really important. Someone's going to ask the question, because as you start to put that, are we going to squeeze employees out, employees who work? So the thinking from EDAC was simply that those business owners might get a discounted rate card for X number of spots that are prepaid but at some discount, or those spots get assigned so that they're not totally punishing, but that it just doesn't become sort of they come across the street now, or they sort of, it's like when they're squeezing a balloon, they're going to go somewhere. But in fairness, we're increasing, or we have the potential of increasing lots, spaces in the lot. Part of that plan needs to say, okay, what's the employee count, what's the volume, how does Passarello's and or Levita's have cars turning over that are in and out. So you still might have a tiered system, but I think you have to approach all of those business owners too and develop perhaps a plan that says, you each get X number of spots per shift or per day, per period, and either at some rate or free, but it's designated so it's not abused.
The possibility of
Right, exactly. So I'm glad you brought that up, Tom.
the possibility of the credit card is really, I think, an enormous value. Be interesting to see how other towns that have a size of the Main Street that we do, and the amount of meters and the parking lot utilize that credit card, and that would be a value to go forward with the plan from that.
Ocean City does it. Ocean City uses
Yeah.
I think that was very good picture.
Yeah, my card got to work out there.
That's what.
There's still obviously research to do, as you mentioned, Greg, and obviously we're not going to make final decisions today. But one more thing I'm curious if your research uncovered, and I'm going to go with personal experience here because I think we've all seen the different types of parking meters. The kiosks on a street, no problem, like you said, once you figure it out, it's smooth sailing. But I'll tell you, the first time I was in Collingswood and used one of their kiosks, it was raining cats and dogs, and I cannot tell you how happy I was to say, oh, the kiosk is down there, and go in the rain, figure out the kiosk, then go back to my car to put the ticket in, then go on to where I was going to eat. So did stuff like that ever come
It
up
did.
in your research?
Yeah, and actually, one of the first meetings I remember telling you, because I had the benefit of one of the blizzards of having to do business in New Hope and climbing a snowbank to get to the kiosk. So I hear you. But that's why we talk about it. It might be a mixed solution, that Main Street for convenience, that, it's a traditional looking, it's a new meter, but it's the traditional that's, a one post with 2 per or 3 per based on what the alignment is. and in the municipal lot, you go to a kiosk. So,
There's still a smartphone ability.
yeah, so practical about it.
Well, let's put it
Okay.
on our,
Great work.
so we'll put it, how do you want to follow up on this, Scott? You want to put it on for the next workshop, or what do you want to do?
I'll follow up with Greg offline and with Tom Rochelle and Tom Ford. We'll have to have, like I said before, Harry Johnson in on the conversation, and especially if we're talking about, the installation wiring, we'll have to get Ken Ewers involved. It's great that.
It's wireless.
Okay, but it is great that we have local resource like we do. We'll just begin doing the work on our part, and I'll give the council plenty of time, lead time to know when we're ready. If it's not the next meeting, perhaps the meeting after
All right,
that.
so we'll set maybe the end of the month or first meeting in October as a follow-up.
Right, because I'm guessing if everything works out perfectly, we'd be looking at this as a 2015 capital budget project.
Yeah, we'd love to see it move forward. I think it's time to just do the math and figure out what the best solution is that fits the budget, but then actually execute on it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. By the way, before I go to the next topic, because Mr. Daragopian, our esteemed past chairman, is here, as well as Mr. George, who was an incredible resource on EDAC. Before I go to the next topic, I want to invite, I don't know if you guys have anything to add on.
I think you covered it well.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming, guys. All right, so the second topic that EDAC worked on was, here, you can read faster than I can talk, everyone. The topic really is around the process and the tools that we use, both as a staff, as a township, as well as applicants who come before Planning Board and Zoning Board of Adjustment. So again, we'll kind of give you some background, and then we'll talk about what our recommendations are. There's always a perception about whether or not towns are easy to do business with. If I'm just fixing my sidewalk and I'm an individual business owner, or if I'm a developer coming to town who has a big project who needs all sorts of variances and waivers. And we realize that there's a balance of what's in the municipal land use and what's in the codes versus the discretion and frankly just the ease of which it is for someone to come to town and get things done. And so one of the asks that we worked on was whether or not there was an opportunity to improve the actual process and tools as well as the perception of this process. So what we're going to talk about now is some ideas around that and allowing to make it a little bit easier and more efficient on both sides of that equation. Sound good? So it goes, hopefully everyone knows that the township staff, Tom Ford, community development, and everyone certainly are committed to quality. I think they work very, very hard. The last number of years where you've had people in different office buildings around town certainly did not make it any easier to do this. And we'll speak to that, but this is building on a foundation that these guys and gals are committed to doing good work for applicants, but clearly there's room for improvement. So we covered a variety of actions for consideration, and we'll have recommendations on some of them. So for starters, just the centralization of staff back in one place certainly is an opportunity to improve efficiency and speed up communication. It's not an end in and of itself, but it certainly has to make things a little bit easier. The second thing was to look at standard operating procedures. Just how do we do it? What does the flow chart look like if you come in today and say, I want to put an addition on my house, or I want to subdivide 10 acres? Just what process do we, the township, take applicants through when they're getting started? Is there any room for improvement around that process? And are there any gaps, right? So are there things that just weren't thought of 20 years ago that are common now? Are there common hurdles or challenges that are happening that can be addressed better or different? And then also look at whether or not the codes as they change, are we mindful of it as it relates to diversity of business, both retail and professional, that come to town or that want to come to town or that are comparing us to other towns around placing their business or expanding, and certainly a typical homeowner as well. Are there things going on that could make it easier for them or harder from the process to get things done? And then the last piece was to look at software, and that, we spent a lot of time on this, just to improve the process, right? We shouldn't be on a paper-based system anymore. We shouldn't need, multiple handoffs being couriered around town in a digital age. It should be easy for all the inspectors, all the different professionals that need to touch it, the staff, as well as the applicant, to be able to do this quickly and efficiently, right? Without having to always make it an in-person visit. So the centralization, I think, goes without saying. That in and of itself should already be an improvement being felt by the staff and hopefully by applicants, knowing that everybody's working together physically now. We currently have a lot of, or I shouldn't say a lot, but we currently have some documents available through our website, but typically they're PDFs that then you download and fill out by hand versus being able to actually apply online and submit online. So that's an area for a fix. And the suggestion, I'm sorry, I've got to read here, but we also could improve our website. There's some FAQs, there's some places, but I used myself as sort of a dummy case. I haven't had to go before the zoning or planning board in quite a long time. So I said, if I was starting anew, could I find everything I need on the website? And contact information too, as well as with the documents. And it took me a while to move around and kind of find and get some of the pieces and parts. And I still didn't have enough. I ended up having to call Tom and Pete Clifford and say, okay, now I need to meet with somebody because I don't have everything I need. So that gets into the SOPs and process that I think we can kind of put that all back out on the table, figure out where it is, and have a simpler drop-down menu on our website that basically says, if I'm going to do this, what do I need, and have it all there. And hopefully, in this day and age, we don't need to build our own. There are solutions available that can just be plug and play, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And here we go, we're going to talk about it in a moment. There's a lot of programs, and it turns out that the state of New Jersey actually created one themselves called Permit New Jersey. The New Jersey League of Municipalities was very helpful to us as we were doing this homework. They made several recommendations. Again, right now we're not telling you which software would be the most advantageous for Morristown. This would require community development, as well as perhaps members of both the zoning and the planning board to review. But the point that EDAC is trying to make here is that there are no shortage of options that include ongoing maintenance, ongoing software update, hosting. We don't need to host it. It's on the cloud, it's there, it's interactive, and the updates and the patches are done without Morristown or any other municipality having to touch it. This allows you the ability to not have to come into town hall to start the application process and know everything you need to know, as well as submit the applications. And some of the cool stuff that starts to happen is as you're waiting for different inspections to happen, you could literally see that, all right, my electrical just got signed off, I'm waiting for fire, plumbing, or what have you. And it's all done in real time. So it's not just the applicant that's seeing that, it's the staff saying, okay, Pete Holmes has been out, right? That's done, we're set. We're waiting for the next piece. So that saves phone calls, that saves running around. I come to town hall and chasing somebody, but he's out looking at my property and we're not even talking to one another. So that doesn't take away the need for personal communication, but it does make everyone more efficient. And all of these things also have an application on a smartphone. So now, your staff, Scott, has the ability as they're doing things to upload things, and it automatically populates to everyone. The staff, the county, as well as the applicant can know as things are happening. So there's some great tools out there that we think you ought to consider. And here's our recommendations. Because EDAC has representatives from Planning and Zoning Board participating routinely, as well as MBA, this is a consensus. I think I can talk on behalf of all three committees. Again, although we're simply advisory, we need to commit to the objective of Morristown improving its processes. It doesn't mean that our processes are bad, it just means that they can be better. Both from a perception standpoint, that people feel good about coming to town and doing work, or if they already are here and they want to do an upgrade to their property or their business, so they feel like it was easy to work with and welcoming. And are we giving our staff current tools too, to make it easier for them to be more productive? That's really what this is all about. Review the SOPs as well as review the software and tools. This too, I recognize, is an investment, but I don't think it's a significant investment when it comes to the software. And the rest really is a management analysis that I think ought to be conducted. Maybe you have the right processes and we just don't have the right tools. But I think unless you sit down and kind of lay those out, solicit feedback from zoning, solicit feedback from planning board, and perhaps solicit feedback from a mix of recent applicants who, like I said, it could be the guy who just wanted to do a sidewalk and a person who built Virtua or a large development, and get their feedback. What worked, what didn't? And use that to inform perhaps how we can do it better.
Yeah, I think it's excellent stuff, Greg. I really appreciate you and EDAC doing this. And I'll tell you one of the things I like most about it, you hit the nail on the head where you said, I'm paraphrasing here, the department's doing a good job, it could potentially do better. And I'm sure there are facets of the process that we can improve upon. What I really like about this idea of new software, especially the part where there's a tracking system with the software, both the resident and the staff all has access to that. Because I'll tell you, my involvement with the permitting process as the township manager is usually only at the point once a resident or a contractor gets very angry with the department and then falls in my lap to deal with. Not that that happens all the time, but it does happen from time to time. And what I generally find a lot of times, and this even happened recently, where a resident uses a contractor, the contractor does all the work. Secures the permit, schedules all the inspections. The resident's just following what the contractor does. We don't know if the contractor's doing everything they're supposed to be doing on time. So when they start falling behind and their client starts complaining, who's the contractor blame? Blames us because the resident hasn't had that interaction, doesn't really know any better. And I'm not saying that it's always the contractor and never us, but this transparency that this potentially has, I think is great all the way around. As you know, construction is not just one guy going out doing an inspection. We have a lot of different disciplines: electric, plumbing, fire. I mean, it's to have one guy go out and look at it doesn't mean it's done. And I think this could be great, because the more we can help educate the customers on this, the public, the better it's going to be for everybody.
It's timely with the fact that we're also looking at rehabbing, for lack of a better word, our website. So.
Yeah, the T&D committee is working on that right now, so this dovetails very well with that. Probably know technology is very near and dear to my heart, and from when I ran, I really wanted to see if when we redid the website, we could have this kind of online permitting process to make it, to streamline that, because, in this day and age, people expect to be able to do these sorts of things online, and with almost anything that's not government, you can. So it's about time that we kind of got with the 21st century. So.
Yeah, and most of these will link. So the good news too is, with or without a complete revamp, which by the way I completely support, our website needs to be a whole lot better. But you identify a tool like this, and it's a link. It's just a hot link to their software. It can be customized to look like it's Morristown, but it's not like your team has to re-engineer it. That these are packages that are cloud-based that just connect in. And the metrics is very important, because I know that Mr. Ford does try to track a turnaround for applications, and I'm sure he and the team are diligent on it. This is a bit more objective, and it's self-creating. You can create tracking reports that just generate. You don't need to rely on someone now saying, are we meeting our deadlines and our timelines?
I'm really glad that you brought this up for just a whole little bit of the reasons that you touched on. And that's the relational database part of it, so many people can see the actions and they can be effective in it. And we'll be going towards continuous improvement, which we need to do. But beyond that, a lot of the things you talked about, actually the Appearance Committee and Sustainable Morristown are trying to move forward with website improvement, and the improvement with the process of the Planning Board and the Zoning Board, as well as the permit process. I actually spent 45 minutes listening to someone on Main Street who was trying to go through groups of those processes, and we need to improve that.
Yeah. So in conclusion, yeah, please.
Not to steal any thunder, but now that we're past a lot of our technology issues we have with the building and stuff and getting everything resolved, I already directed Mr. Polkowitz to review, and it's great if I can get the information that you've gotten, put that together with the information he's given me, and we're going to start calling vendors in.
Great.
So I'd like to, the people you had mentioned, we'd like to get a subcommittee or whatever. What we were going to do is we're going to, get community development involved, call in some people, and then bring you guys in for help with a recommendation. It would be great to get a subcommittee to do that with us, so I can give you that.
Yeah, we'd be happy to help. And again, I think you have it in the right order, because you guys actually have to work with it. We can look at it and think something's cool and sexy, but we don't have to use it every day. So I think you guys that are going to own the process have to ultimately make the call.
The existing software they have right now is old software that needs to be changed. There's a lot of great things you can do with it as far as the tracking. Basically, you can cross-reference by block and lot, everything that happens on that property, anybody should be able to look in, see all the permits, and people outside can track all their stuff. So we are looking into that right now, and it'd be great to have you guys working with it.
Yeah, well, I'm almost done, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. But I'm gonna close on this like I did with parking meters. EDAC is asking you to take action on this. We think it's past time. We know there's a lot that bogs down in just the process of getting things done. But the first is a commit to act, and then assigning work, and then waiting for an outcome, actually expecting that something's gonna get done. So that's our plea from EDAC.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, I do.
All right, so here's why I have your ears and eyes. So what's next for EDAC? There's a couple things we're already working on that we've been asked to. The first is the electronic marketing brochure. Hopefully that will be done before the end of the year. Actually, we take a hiatus in the summertime, so I'm just not sure of the status of that. So at our next EDAC meeting, we'll find that out and certainly we'll update you. We're looking for feedback from council, frankly, as to next initiatives to work on. There are two that we'd like to put on your radar. I, as the chairman, have heard mixed messages regarding an evaluation of our utility asset.
What's public safety assessment?
I'll get to that one. So I want to just pause on that utility thing. We can certainly talk offline, but certainly EDAC takes that very seriously around whether or not we're optimizing that asset as owning it ourselves, what the opportunities are to consider not owning it anymore, and what they could or couldn't do for the township. So that's a big issue. That's not a quick meeting or a quick conversation, but I think in this day and age it bears analysis, and again, that would require you guys' input on it. We can certainly help with that. That's something that is a long-term analysis that really needs to get done. We've seen some other towns go through this, and there's pros and cons, which also reinforces to us on EDAC that needs to get looked at. Whether we do it or not, that's up to you guys, but it's something that council and future council should be very aware of. The public safety assessment really just gets to some feedback that we've gotten. It's not so much an EDAC topic, but people have approached us, given some of the, what would appear to be additional crime that's been happening across the summertime in a variety of different neighborhoods in town. So to the effect that it affects business, it affects residents, I don't know, frankly, you know how much this has been on your guys' radar over the summer, but again, it's something that has been feedback to us. It doesn't have to reside with us. I'm just offering it as a suggestion that if it's not already being undertaken, it ought to be. So we'll await feedback from you guys. We'll make sure that the two topics we worked on will follow up and get to you. I will tell you that Harry Johnson was part of our early parking analysis. I don't believe he saw our final conclusions. And frankly, I think he would be important to the implementation, but not to the strategy and the decision. I think that's now we're at a town strategy that he would be a part of, but I think you guys need to own that.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you, Chairman Gallo. You have big shoes to fill following Chairman Derek Gobino after all these years, but you're doing a decent job.
I'm trying.
Well, thanks anyway.
He's a big help. All right, thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks.
We move to ordinances on second reading. We read them individually. Mr. Manager, if you read it by title.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. First is number 11-2014. It's an ordinance of the Township of Morristown to correct and modify an easement over Block 3000, Lot 4 for fire hydrants, potable water, and sanitary sewer at Eastgate Square.
Okay. I'll open the floor to public hearing on that ordinance. If you have a question or a comment regarding that ordinance only, please come to the microphone. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing portion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Abstention, nays, none. Council, discussion regarding that ordinance or a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Vicky, roll call.
Mr. Newcomer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That ordinance passes on second reading. Ordinance is on first reading. Mr. Manager, can you read them individually by title?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. First is 12-2014, authorizing the lease of a portion of Block 5800, Lot 46, Block 7200, Lot 1, and Block 7100, Lot 43 known as the Better Open Space in Winter Fields, and all of Block 7401, Lot 3, the Nagel Tract, for the cultivation of crops.
Council, discussion or a motion to adopt on first reading and set the public hearing date for September 22nd, 2014 at 7:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Vicky, roll call.
Mr. Newcomer?
Yes.
Mr. Pellet?
Yes.
Mayor Campbell?
Yes.
Next is number 13-2014, an ordinance amending ordinance number 734, the Morristown Township Salaries and Compensation Ordinance 1973, as amended and supplemented by providing for salary and longevity for patrol officers, detectives, corporals, sergeants, and lieutenants.
Council, question or comments or a motion to adopt on first reading and setting the public hearing on September 22nd, 2014 at 7:30 p.m.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Vicky?
Mr. Newcomer?
Yes.
Mr. Pellet?
Yes.
Mayor Campbell?
Yes. Scott, moving to consent agenda resolutions, if you would read them all by title.
Yes, sir. First is 179-2014, awarding a contract in the amount of $69,998 to Cherry Valley Tractor Sales for the purchase and delivery of a Kubota M8560 HFC 85 horsepower cab tractor or equal. Next is 181-2014, amending Resolution 156-2013, entitled Authorizing the Tax Collector to Cancel Property Taxes for the 2013 second, third, and fourth quarters and 2014 preliminary. 182-2014 is appointing Michael Altschuler as an additional member to the Recreation Advisory Committee. 183-2014 is awarding a contract to Paladine, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $30,360 for delivery and furnishing of liquid polymer for the Department of Public Works. 184-2014 is authorizing change order number 1 in the amount of $1,085.49 in connection with construction of the municipal court office located at 1245 North Church Street. 185-2014 is awarding a contract in the amount of $66,765 to All Clean Building Services, Inc. for janitorial maintenance services. 186-2014 is authorizing the Township of Morristown to enter into a cooperative purchasing agreement. And 187-2014 is awarding a contract for the 2014 overlay project to Arawak Paving Company in the amount of $1,622,800.
Thank you, Scott. At this time, I'll open the floor for public comment on those consent agenda resolutions. If you have a question or a comment, please come to the microphone, state your name. Seeing none, I will close that portion. I will ask council for a comment or motion to adopt.
Just two questions, if I could, on 179-2014. I was interested in two things. Is there an amount of hours that the Kubota tractor is run for the year, one, and two, did we investigate a shared service with anybody else, the schools, I don't know if the fire company has a Kubota tractor, but anyone else that, another town that might be of value if the hours are so low in using Kubota tractor. As this is a high maintenance item, was that investigated?
It's both high maintenance and expensive, Greg, and I can't answer the first question for you off the top of my head. But if the answer is that this is a primary piece of equipment that's used on a regular basis, then it's the type of thing that a shared service may not work on our benefit. The only problem with that type of shared service where there's not a set schedule. Like our court, for example, we know we're going to be in Cinnaminson on a set time, set days, week after week. If this is a piece of equipment that Public Works requires frequently and not at a set scheduled time.
So it's incoincident.
Right, then it's hard to rely on the kindness of strangers to them to give it to us when we need it, even if they're in the midst of using it. So, but I can certainly follow up and if obviously the answer to the first question leads to the answer to the second question.
Correct.
Okay, is that time sensitive? Do we need to award that today?
Well, we can also add that this had great value because it's replacing a 1979 one we ever used.
Okay.
So It has long-term value.
We got our years out of that one.
But in regards to the hours of use, I would be interested, and that's a good question, I like it, is it time sensitive, or could we,
Okay,
that'd be great.
We'll do a sing-along until you,
Move that one.
yeah. Okay, so we'll take that one, how do we do that, Scott? Can we pull that one out right now?
If someone could just make a motion to amend the consent agenda
I can see
to
that would be you.
Move to amend the agenda to remove 179-2014 from the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, so we'll move that. And then at this point, I'll ask for a comment or motion regarding all the remaining 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the consent agenda resolutions. A comment or a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Vicky, roll call.
Mr. Newcomer?
Yes.
Ms. Napolitano?
Yes.
Mayor Campbell?
Yes. Okay. I guess while he's making his call, let's move to the public hearing portion for resolution 180-2014. Mr. Manager, if you read that by title?
Certainly, it's a resolution of the Township of Morristown awarding one plenary retail consumption license for the sale of alcoholic beverage to Morristown Beverage One LLC.
Maybe you can give us a little back.
We'll take someone here to give the background for us.
We're going to recuse at this point.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Dottie Walensky, I'm an attorney from Drinker Biddle. I'm here on behalf of Morristown Beverage One LLC. Morristown Beverage One LLC is actually an affiliate of Morristown Mall LLC. It's no surprise that Morristown Mall LLC owns the Morristown Mall, and essentially is owned by a company called Pennsylvania Real Estate Investment Trust, commonly referred to as PREIT.
Okay.
With me tonight is Bruce Goldman, who is the manager of the applicant, Morristown Beverage One, and he's also the general counsel of PREIT, so he can fill us in on things that are going on in the mall. This past summer, you'll recall that you actually put out a request for bids for this plenary retail liquor license. We submitted an application in the beginning of August in conformance with your bidding requirements. We filled out the state ABC 12-page application, as well as your local questionnaire, paid all the filing fees, and we've posted a $400,000 deposit for this application. It's my understanding that nobody else has applied for this liquor license, so we're here tonight just to fill you in on what's going on with the mall, our intentions, and hopefully move to the next step on this purchase.
Okay, well, why don't you keep your, you can certainly keep the comments limited to what you intend to do with this license. And you can just give us, as much as, to the furthest extent practical, what you can tell us about what your intentions are with this license.
Very good.
Sure. Thank you very much. I'm Bruce Golden. I'm the General Counsel of PREIT, and obviously appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. The purpose of the license, which would be the 5th license that we would hold at the mall, is to bring in an additional restaurant. Right? It's one that is a differentiator, obviously located on the other side of the mall, closer to the theater. Not necessarily prepared to announce who the tenant will be. It will be imminent, but it is it's going to build off of the most recent announcement we had, which was Harvest, Harvest is a wine oriented themed restaurant. This would be a little bit more craft beer would be the complement to the existing set of restaurateurs that are currently in place. The expectation would be is that it would open in 2015. It would give us great through traffic. We think that we have performed in terms of how we've operated and managed the property with the existing licenses that have been awarded to us previously. We've tried hard to live up to our obligations to the township. We've been thrilled with our work with the township in making them all something that we can all be proud of and to be good citizens in the township.
Okay, that's great.
And Bruce, obviously we have the state board.
Closer to the mic, please.
We just wanted to mention, obviously, we have the facilities to accommodate the restaurant and the parking and the traffic flow, so we feel like we're a perfect fit for the additional restaurant.
Right. And what are you paying for the license?
Our bid was $1,005,000.
Fine. So do you have $605 on you?
We're ready to,
In 30 days?
we're ready to call
Whenever you
this
tell
one.
us, man, we'll be ready.
No, we don't. And do you want to give us a brief update on the law? Is that within your purview?
No,
Or?
no, I was just, Bruce wanted to fill you in on how.
Oh,
how
okay,
the
yeah,
shop
I-
was out there.
We're always very excited to hear what's happening.
We
It's
are
looking great.
thrilled, we are thrilled with how the mall is progressing. I think what you'll see between now and the holidays is, in addition to the opening of Rosari, you'll see a series of boutiques that open up. Currently, a number of boutiques share space with Rosari on Route 73. A good number of those are coming as well. And so we're trying to, the key focus has been differentiating the property from Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill obviously has the full complement of national kind of fashion merchants. We're really trying to go a little bit more artisanal. We're trying to go much more local. We're trying to build on specific retailers that have relationships in niches in southern New Jersey. And that's been the central focus. So in addition to the restaurants, obviously we've been thrilled with the performance of the theater. We're obviously thrilled to have the salon and all the accoutrements that will accompany the salon. And with this kind of making this more of a fashion destination for the South Jersey shopper. Again, it's truly oriented to differentiating it from Cherry Hill.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we enjoy it. The movie theater, the restaurants. You go past Firebirds at 5 o'clock and it's packed outside. It's unbelievable.
I walked that mall when I was 16, when Chris was a kid. And I can't tell you how nice it is to see that mall is coming back. And you can see the improvement, because I walk it a lot now. I'm trying to lose a little weight.
How can they have ducks in the mall?
I think what you're trying to see too is we're trying to change the price points as well.
Yeah.
Trying to encourage a whole mix of folks to feel comfortable there, whatever their price range, not just in terms of the restaurants, but in terms of the fashion and the other offerings. We want the kids to be welcome. We want juniors to be welcome. We want families to feel welcome. So we're just really trying to consciously mix the price points of the property.
And we can see a significant change.
Great job.
Well, we're thrilled. Thank you.
Great job. Yep. All right, we're going to move on to, thank you very much.
Be well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, at this point, I'll open the public portion for comments or questions regarding Resolution 180-2014. If you have a question or comment on that resolution only, please come to the microphone. Sure.
Good evening, Edwin Begg, 209 Perry Drive. Questions, information on it, no other comment. Including this $1.5 million, what will be, assuming it's all paid off, what will the total liquor license income be? Question 2 is, out of that total, how much is left that either hasn't already been expended or has already been spoken for?
Off the top of my head, I'd say it was 6 million.
That's income.
6,030,000,
All right, $6
$45,
million.
$50, somewhere around there.
That's pretty close.
$5.
And it's very tough to say exactly how much because it's not accounted for separately. It's part of the surplus. Surplus is healthy. It's around $6 million, but it's made up of other things. It's not tracked in itself. It's part of a very healthy surplus.
Yeah, but how much is that, by whatever name it's called, how much is left? There will be left.
Well, again, it's not just, we're not spending just liquor money dollars. We're not spending just excess of other, it's all part of surplus.
But Tom, with this extra $1 million, what do you anticipate our surplus being at the end of the year?
Probably about $6.5 million.
What was that question? What was the answer again?
So, I was trying to simplify what I.
Look, it's a simple question.
It's,
Well, and I was trying to simplify it even more for you.
And how much is left?
Right. What Mr. Michelle was trying to say is, once we receive the income from the other licenses,
Yeah.
That money went into our surplus. Once it's in the surplus, it does not maintain a separate designation in terms of, okay, here's our surplus, here's liquor money, and here's everything else. It's just surplus. So what Mr. Michaud was trying to say to you, it's hard to give an accounting of how much of the surplus that we've used since the first liquor money came in was liquor money. What I asked him, which I thought would help give you your answer, was what will the surplus be at the end of the year with this additional $1 million? He said $6.5 million. So that, I think that's.
We've already used up.
But there's other things that go into surplus.
We used about 2.3 million in this budget. We didn't say 2.3 came from, we didn't say 2 million came from this and
Goes in one
300,000
pot.
came from here. It's one pot.
One pot, goes in one pot, it's used.
It's
not
kind of
used.
like if I asked,
But there's
out of
no,
the total that I spent or will spend for this year, tax year, and I gave you, wrote a check, 4 checks, and how much of my check that I wrote for X dollars a week or 2 back, how much have you guys already spent? I'm not asking that. I can see that it's kind of difficult problem. Well, if you don't have an answer, you don't have an answer.
well, what's easy to say is without the liquor money, we would not have a surplus for years. That part we could say. But it's constantly being used throughout several budgets. And then it's being replenished by other resources. We used 2.3 million in surplus this year. It wasn't 2.3 of liquor money only. It was 2.3 of many sources.
I'll leave, but I'm an unhappy or unsatisfied questioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon or good evening, Mayor. Jake Deragopian, 721 North Stanwick Road. I'm just here, I would like to speak in support of the resolution to issue the license. I think the mall has demonstrated they're a great corporate citizen. They've kept to their word. They've done a great job in the renovations and repositioning the mall, creating it as a destination. They've honored their word and they've stepped up, and certainly, as Tom has pointed out, the surplus money has really helped out the town, so we really appreciate that. That's what I was addressing.
And you're in our appreciation, because you, as EDAC chairman, you did a lot.
Well, it was a community effort, and it's just nice to see that it's all working out and everybody's happy. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I just, Jake, if I could, I was going to say something to the mayor, that a lot of good things discussed tonight, and your fingerprints have been all over them. So thanks, Jake.
Entertain a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
A voice vote, all in favor, closing? Aye. Abstention, means none. Discussion from council or motion to adopt resolution 180-2014.
Motion to adopt.
Roll call, Vicki?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. We're going to minutes of August 4th, 2014.
We have to come back to that one resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. How many hours does the Tabuda tractor?
I could not get a hold of.
What is,
Oh, that's it.
can we do it next time?
Yeah, I mean,
Let's do it.
is it time sensitive? I mean, we have to make sure everyone is comfortable with, with their position and voting or not voting for it. So it's an awarding a contract. Is the contract, is it a bid that expires?
No, it wouldn't expire by the next meeting. I mean, I think we all know Mr. Ewers well enough to know that he very rarely, or never, puts in for frivolous spending.
And I wasn't saying that.
No, and I.
My goal would be that we would be able to find things that are, able to be shared services. That would be my
Especially since the preceding tractor is,
It's probably going to be picked up by the Smithsonian. So. But no, I'm not aware of any reason why this vote cannot wait till the next meeting.
Well, thank you.
Minutes from August 4, 2014, council, comment or motion to approve the minutes for August 4, 2014.
Move to approve.
Second.
Vicky, roll call.
Mr. Newcomer?
Yes.
Ms. Delacqua?
Yes.
Mayor Fields?
Yes, thank you. Approval of expenditures, comment or question by anyone, Councilman? Or motion to adopt?
Second. Yes.
Yes. There is no need to continue the workshop, so we will move to comments from the public. This is for items listed on the agenda from 7:30 to the present. If you have a comment regarding the agenda, please come forth.
Edwin Pegg, 209 Perry Drive. I'd like to comment briefly on the EDAC presentation. First of all, right up on top and in front, both Mr. Hagopian and formerly, and Mr. Gallo, presently working at EDAC, have done a great job and continue to do a great job. So again, we're, as a community, very fortunate. Specifically now on the